Money. It seems to be modern day sword and shield, and in many aspects it is, because nowadays you can defend yourself and you can also fight back with money. If you have money, you're able to control basically all aspects of your life and what happens, the potential risks, right? Today, I want to talk about this idea that I don't know if it's true or not. I don't know if it's a theory or, I imagine it is. And I just got done watching the documentary on it. It's called The Spider's Web. And it's about the British Empire's second empire, I guess you could say. It's basically how they went from being a British empire that basically controlled the world with all of its colonies, and with through commercial means, right? And basically production and these type of different connections that it had in different parts of the world. And I think that's when the world was relatively peaceful, and it was called Pax Britannica. How it went from that to now being kind of like a secret controller of the world, but through monetary means. So it controls money, and this is exemplified in the video as basically in London, in England, there are two Londons. There's a Greater London, which is the big London, and it has all of these other sections. And in the middle, there's the city of London with its own state, basically its own mayor, its own sort of government. And it's kind of interesting because to a certain extent, they cover all legal territorial bases, to exclude themselves from legislation or legal aspects of any type of how could I say, any problem, any type of problem they could have. Right now, the spider's web idea, I first heard about it a while back, when I was reading and watching Sherlock Holmes. In Sherlock Holmes, you have Sherlock Holmes, who's the protagonist, and he's fighting Moriarty, who's like the top villain. And then when he ends up killing Moriarty, or Moriarty leaves, in the story, Sherlock basically goes throughout the world dismantling the web, the spider web, right? Which is, I guess, an analogy or a metaphor for the connections worldwide that you can have among various types of individuals, from government to businessmen to criminals to all sorts of people powerful that are very rich. And basically they're connected through this interweb, and that's why they call it the spider's web. So I didn't know about this until on YouTube, like, this documentary appeared, and I was like, whoa, let me check that documentary out, because it makes sense that Britain has a second empire, which is this one. So we're talking about money, and we're talking about the control of finances, and there's a lot of ways in which this is done. The video explains it. Some of it I understood it, some of it I didn't understand it. The main idea is tax evasion. And we know this because we know that rich people that have a lot of money, they basically evade taxes, because the more money you have, the more taxes you got to pay. And the taxes are supposed to go to public works, and to the public, and they're supposed to benefit public interest, right? Excuse me. But businessmen, bankers, lawyers, accountants, and the government work together to kind of limit that, and basically have more for themselves, right? Through various complex ways. So it was interesting because during one part of this documentary, they said it's funny because even when you discover something that's been going on, like that's illegal, or that's like immoral or unethical, and it's against public interest, like tax evasion, it's so complex and so muddied that people really don't even really understand it, right? And I guess it is true, because if you talk about finance, if you talk about politics, and all the workings, lobbying, and all that type of intricate social work, it's very complicated to understand it, right? And you could say, well, what are the arguments for doing stuff like that, right? Like the government and businessmen and bankers could say, well, we are doing good. We are doing the only thing that we do know how to do, because how do you, first of all, how do you govern, right? Like, what is governing? And then how do you make sure that, what you give as taxes is equivalent, even though you are making a lot of money? So it's like you're making a lot of money, so you should give more money. But then there comes a point where you're like, well, I've earned this money, right? Nobody likes giving away their money, right? Through taxes, through taxation. But it's more money than the average person. Now, the average person says, well, we pay our taxes, the percentage of tax. How come you rich people don't, right? And it does kind of make sense. So, this intricate web, I mean, before it used to be swords, and I think it's always kind of been like a type of the strongest survive, right? So before it used to be armies, brute force, and they used to just take land and conquer it. Now it's more of a monetary legal means. So these people are basically like making the law, but they make the law to their benefit, or they operate within the law, but they're doing things that are benefiting themselves, right? And not the public, right? Because, so you could say that's why the public is kind of frustrated, because, psychologically or unconsciously, we may perceive that we're just getting the basic, right? While there's like rich people that are having like all these type of luxuries, right? And they're well connected, and their type of families are generational, so there's no competing with that, right? So what if, I thought about this, kind of thought experiment. What if there were a type of world revolution? That would be kind of interesting. They mentioned there's a conspiracy against the public interest, right? So they do serve the public, but they do so minimally, right? With the basic, like, you just need this, you need roads, you need, but nothing beyond that, because anything extra that we are able to have is going to us, right? That's for us. That's not for you, the public. Yeah, the complexity makes it hard to recognize exactly what's going on. And then, the question we could ask ourselves here is like, who is supposed to do what, really? Like, I always like to think about this, like, towards the future. How are we really supposed to be caring about this, or going about this, right? In what way are we supposed to do this? Because you could say, well, they do legislate, they do control, they have a lot of information and knowledge and history, because a lot of them are like wealthy families that have been wealthy, that they're born wealthy, they die wealthy, their next generations are born like that. So do they deserve that, right? And then and what about the average person? The average person, can aspire to more, but we do have a limit, because I wonder, do these people have a limit? Like, do they go paycheck to paycheck, or every month they say, we're gonna go here and here, but that's all, because we're not gonna spend any more beyond that? Or are they just spending, unlimitedly, or unlimited, right? They just spend and spend, and they don't have a limit, which I would think it's that one, right? The one where they may not have a limit. So I thought this was kind of interesting to get into the spider's web. Let me know what you think in the comments. And that's all for this video. Don't want to make it too long, so I'll see you in the next one. Peace.